This episode has been brought to you by our super generous supporters on Patreon. Pizza. Heard of it? It's one of the most popular foods in the United States, but go to any other country and you will likely be able to find a slice of pizza. But how did this regional Italian dish go from being local street food to a worldwide phenomenon? Well, it involves some of the greatest conflicts in human history, some volcanoes, but most of all, an ingenious business strategy. Good Stuff producer Matt Weber recounts the epic tale of how pizza invaded America and conquered the world.
In the spring of 1943, while the combined militaries of Britain, France, and the United States sat on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, supplementing their field rations with Tunisian cuisine, Allied forces got their first taste of victory. They had just pushed the Germans and Italians off the African continent, dealing the Axis powers their first major defeat of World War II. Now, Allied commanders were contemplating an invasion of the soft underbelly of Nazi-occupied Europe. To get there, they would need to scale the whole leg of Italy, which was just a mere amphibious assault across the Mediterranean. The troops wouldn't have much time to savor their victory, but there was plenty more cuisine waiting for them on the peninsula. Some of the Americans had even sampled it before. Pizza. In 2017, pizza was voted the #1 comfort food in the US. Yet just 75 years earlier, nary an American could say they'd even heard of the dish, much less tasted it. The first pizzeria in the US opened at the turn of the century, either in Chicago or New York, depending on your source. It had followed a wave of Italian immigrants who had carried the dish from their homeland all the way across the Atlantic. But it didn't catch on right away with the American public. For the next half-century, it would remain a cultural secret, and it would take a world war to finally uncover it. Before pizza made its first tentative landings on America's beachheads, it was mostly relegated to a small corner of southern Italy and the countryside surrounding the Bay of Naples. While pizza-like flatbread dishes can be traced all the way back to the Roman Empire, and flatbread itself first appears shortly after the invention of agriculture nearly 11,000 years ago, the oldest known use of the word pizza doesn't appear until the first millennium, in what might be considered the first pizza delivery order. 1,000 years ago, a bishop in the small Italian village of Gaeta ordered 12 pizzas. These pizzas were to be delivered every Christmas and every Easter. Why the bishop needed so many pizzas on a recurring basis is lost to the sands of time. But one thing is certain, pizza was even popular in the Middle Ages. But pizza wouldn't become the dish we know today without one crucial ingredient: the tomato. And it lay across 1,000 miles of unexplored ocean, on a continent no Italian had ever set foot upon, that is, until 1492. Although Italian explorer Christopher Columbus led Europeans to the tomato, it was the Spanish crown that eventually conquered the areas of Central and South America, where the tomato was indigenous. After sacking the island city of Tenochtitlan and overthrowing the Aztec Empire, the conquistador Hernán Cortés claimed all of Mexico for Spain, including its lavish store of tomatoes. The tomato plant grew easily and abundantly in Italy's Mediterranean climate, its success abetted by the rich soils at the foot of the region's numerous volcanoes. It slowly infiltrated the local cuisine until one day in the late 18th century, the tomato joined forces with a local flatbread dish, a merger that resulted in pizza as we know it today. But for another 2 centuries, pizza would lie in wait, content with a single region in southern Italy as the whole extent of its territory, waiting for the invasion to come to it. In September of 1943, the Allied invasion of Italy commenced. Almost immediately, things did not go as planned. Over 300,000 soldiers would be dead or injured before the Germans were driven off the peninsula. It would be the most costly operation of the entire war for the Allies in terms of human life. On top of it all, the soldiers had almost nothing to eat except government-issued combat rations. Designed for caloric density over palatability, the combat rations soldiers carried into battle weren't meant to be eaten for more than a few days. They didn't have the vitamins nor the nutritional content necessary to sustain a person indefinitely, much less soldiers fighting their way through mud and scaling mountains. But the circumstances in the Italian theater often didn't give American soldiers much of a choice. They lost weight, their muscles wasted away, they got scurvy and suffered from malnutrition. Not to mention they were stuck in some of the heaviest fighting in the largest war in human history. But the same rugged geography that was keeping Allied forces pinned down and slowing their advance also provided a relatively simple, calorically dense, and nutritionally sound alternative to their abysmal combat rations: Italian cuisine, most notably pizza. To the soldiers who were there, victory tasted suspiciously similar to pizza. And when these soldiers finally returned to their homes, they came back with that taste forever seared in their memories. In fact, they sought it out. And so another invasion commenced. Pizzerias popped up all over the country, filtering out of their strongholds in the Italian neighborhoods of New York and Chicago, and infiltrating communities all across the nation via a newly minted interstate highway system. In 1956, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act. For the first time, the United States would be connected by a network of dedicated roads, allowing for unimpeded and rapid transit to all parts of the country. And as the U.S. population retreated into automobile-dependent suburban enclaves, pizza followed. But the greatest post-war development that pizza had in its arsenal was the rise of the restaurant franchise. Fueled by a much more mobile populace and an unprecedented demand for fast and cheap food, restaurant chains began popping up everywhere in the 1950s and 60s. At the beginning of 1950, less than 100 franchised companies existed in the US. By 1960, less than 10 years later, there would be over 900, with over 200,000 franchises across the country. With the success of fast food chains dealing in burgers, fried chicken, and soft-serve ice cream, the appearance of the pizza franchise wasn't far behind. Soon, there was a style of pizza for every flavor of American. New York style, Chicago deep dish, Hawaiian, California style, Detroit style, Greek, barbecue, dessert pizza. There was no limit to pizza's cultural subterfuge. And so the stage was set for pizza's eventual world domination. In the 1970s, pizza returned to Europe, expanding its influence on the continent far beyond the Bay of Naples. This time, it was armed with the financial resources of multi-million-dollar global franchises. But its invasion didn't stop there. Soon, a flotilla of pizza franchises made landfall in countries as distant as Indonesia and Japan. But it wasn't until the dissolution of the Soviet Union, leaving the US as the only remaining superpower, when pizza was finally free to conquer the entire world. In 1990, the first pizza franchise entered China. In just a few years, it would be in India, then Southeast Asia. Soon it would reach most of the population on Earth, buoyed by the nascent currents of an increasingly globalized economy. In 2009, the first pizzeria even opened in the capital of the notoriously isolated nation of North Korea. It was authorized by the dear leader himself, Kim Jong-il. Pizza has even broke the bonds of Earth and boarded the International Space Station. Today, no place on Earth, or within near-Earth orbit, is safe from pizza. While it maintains the same basic body plan and design, a flatbread topped with seasonings and sauces, its toppings are almost infinite in their variety, spanning the gamut from typical fare like tomatoes and pepperoni to Vegemite and grasshoppers. Since its meteoric rise to power, pizza has become as diverse as the cultural palettes it now occupies. But in an effort to save pizza's Italian identity, the True Neapolitan Pizza Association was formed to promote and preserve the purity of true Italian pizza. A true pizza can only use San Marzano tomatoes grown in the plains at the foot of Mount Vesuvius. A real pizza uses dough rolled by the hands of a trained pizzaiolo and mozzarella cheese acquired from untamed water buffalo living in the marshlands of the Campania and Lazio regions of southern Italy. According to the True Neapolitan Pizza Association, the original pizza, the genesis of all pizza, was in 1889. As the legend goes, in an attempt to impress Queen Margherita, the sole heiress to the Italian royal family, an Italian Neapolitan pizzaiolo made her a pizza decked out in the colors of the Italian flag. Tomato sauce for red, mozzarella cheese for white, and basil leaves for green. The new queen was so pleased, this pizza was forever known as Margherita Pizza. And all true pizza is descended from this royal lineage. Anything else is but a pretender to the throne. Anyway, that's how the legend goes. The true story of pizza is much more complicated. Its success isn't as much about impressing royalty as it is due to victorious armies and shrewd business practices. And if we really boil it down, much of human history, much of the reason the world is the way it is today, is due to those very same factors.
So what do you think? What's the future of pizza look like? What's your favorite pizza? Is there anyone out there who's never tried pizza? Just tell me about pizza. What's your favorite topping? Is your name pizza? Probably not. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video like a flotilla of pizza franchises. Or is it a flotilla? If you'd like to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/thegoodstuff. There's lots of nice perks over there. Early access to our videos, access to our research, and a bunch of other stuff. Thank you for watching.